Hello?
Oh, hi, yeah, this is, that negative thought you've been having, and I just can't let you try and change yourself without a fight, so, go ahead and just turn the show off, okay? And, yeah, everything's still fine.
This is Blindsight with your host, Bill Lundgren, an AINC original podcast.
You serious?
We're not holding back truth. We're here to help you heal and become the best you possible. Here's the chair, here's the pillow, here's Bill.
Hello, everybody. This is another episode of Blindsight, which is produced by the Audio Information Network of Colorado. I'm your host, Bill Lundgren, and I'm delighted to have a fellow podcaster on today to help me with the subject we're going to talk about. Most of you may already know Penn, who is the podcast for AfterSight. And she's also, you know her as an advocate for blind people, and she's also very much into physical health. And that's the subject I want to work on today.
You're listening to Blindsight with Bill Lundgren. If you enjoy what you hear, please visit aincolorado.org for more shows, news, and articles read by our amazing staff and volunteers. If you have a question for Bill or would like to recommend a guest for future shows, please visit aincolorado.org/podcast-guest. Welcome to Blindsight.
Welcome, Penn, to this program, which you were instrumental, I think, in getting started, and thank you.
Well, thanks, Bill. Thank you so much for having me. I haven't talked to you since you've been a guest on AfterSight. So it's really fun to catch up with you a little bit. And I'm so excited for Blindsight. It's definitely something that's been needed and people are really appreciating the podcast. So thanks for hosting it.
Well, thank you. The last 2 weeks, we've been talking about it's the beginning of a new year. Everybody sets goals and so forth. And one of the things that people tend to set a goal of, this is what you hear about, is, I'm going to exercise this year, or I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to, something having to do with physical exercise. And I know when I used to work out in the gym, if I went in January and February, it'd be real difficult to get equipment to work with. By March, then the place would be, it'd be falling rapidly in terms of how many people show up.
Right.
And yet, as a therapist working with mental health, I, like a great many of us, have come to realize that we cannot just look at your mental health without looking at physical health as well. The two of them feed off each other and build on each other. And so I thought it was important for us, as both of us are blind people with blindness, who, maybe, for me, I was always intimidated and kind of prevented by others from spreading my wings in being able to be physical. I know people are constantly amazed when I talk about hiking. Mm-hmm. And, what are you going to be in Colorado? I mean, why be in Colorado if you're not hiking?
Right.
Because there's so much here. But they think because we can't see, that, we're a danger to be out there hiking around. And so I wanted to get some feedback from you in terms of how you deal with people who are afraid for you, how and other people who are afraid of their partners or their children getting out and being physical, and what are the ways that we can work around it so we can have a healthy physical life, which encourages a healthy mental life.
Yeah, this is definitely a topic that is very dear to my heart. I talk frequently on Aftersight about hiking and skiing and paddleboarding and things like that. And for me, Bill, it's the people that are going to tell us that we shouldn't be doing that, or that's dangerous, or, those kinds of things are probably people that need to be out there hiking and skiing and paddleboarding along with us. Because the people who actually are out there doing active things outside, they don't have the same perspective as people who don't. So, for instance, growing up, my mother, who was a big gardener and she loved gardening, and she was visually impaired and hearing impaired. And the garden was sort of her sanctuary. That's where her mental health and rejuvenation came from, especially raising 10 children. And that was fine. It was fine for me to go out and help her in the garden. But when it came to bike riding or hiking or skiing, she just thought it was insanity to have a blind child do those things. But it's because she didn't do them. However, my father, who, I had 7 older brothers, they were in Boy Scouts and things like that. So they were constantly out doing things in all the seasons. And so my dad was the one that really was like, hey, if you want to go back to bike riding after you lost your vision, go back to bike riding. Yes, you are probably going to fall. You're probably going to crash, but you fell and crashed even when you had sight. If you want to go on that camping trip with the school, go for it, And I am sure behind closed doors, my mother and father fought about it. And sometimes my dad won and sometimes my mom won. But I think that parents and loved ones should not keep anybody from doing an activity outside, especially if they aren't willing to do it themselves.
Well, that part of the issue is they feel that as the guardian of us, and it's as I often say, I have to be careful if I want to date anyone, because the codependents are the ones who are drawn to me like a magnet, because they want to protect me from getting hurt or from the facts of life.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things that the people who care about us have to know, that it really is helpful for us to fall.
Exactly.
To, in a sense, hurt ourselves, because that's how we learn different ways of being able to do what we want to do without getting injured.
Absolutely. But there's
and that's
also
a hard thing.
Yeah, there's also the whole other level of, and I know you know way more of this than I do because of the field that you come from, Bill, but there's scientific proof that no matter who you are, what your ability is, what you can or can't do, if you get outside, even if it's just going for a walk around your own neighborhood, the endorphins and the chemistry in your body changes for the better. And so when loved ones keep us from experiencing the outdoors, they're actually doing us more harm than they are good. And I recommend that, if you have a blind child or a loved one that I'll take skiing as an example, and you're very fearful of them, well, then put them in a program, let professionals teach them how to ski. So that I would never recommend a loved one teaching somebody how to do anything outside, because that's an easy way to get divorced, I guess. But there's all these other options. If you're afraid to let your loved one or allow your loved one or support your loved one in doing something in the outdoors, then step back, say, hey, I'll give you a ride to the pool or to this hiking group or to the ski adventure, whatever it is, you can still support them in it. And then you go sit in the lodge or you go to the nearest coffee house or bookstore or whatever, and you take care of yourself and let the professionals, kind of step in and teach that child or that adult the skills that they're going to need in whatever outdoor activity that is.
How do you find the professionals that are comfortable in working with people with blindness?
Oh, Bill, we are so lucky to live in Colorado because there are so many, regardless if it's a water sport or skiing or whatever it is, hiking. There are lots and lots of groups out there that have incredible programs, and a lot of them are either free or majorly discounted because, as you know, people who are blind, it's income is one of our biggest barriers. So, I know Audio Information Network of Colorado has some of those programs on our website, which is aincolorado.org. But if you don't find something, if you're looking for something and you're not finding it, you can absolutely email me and ask me directly. And my name is Penn, Penn. So it's Penn at aincolorado.org. And I mean, I'm not kidding. This is a big passion of mine, is for blind people to get outside, whatever that activity is, because it really, really does help mentally, physically, spiritually, you name it. So feel free to reach out to me.
There's a wonderful book out called The Nature Fix, Fix. And in it is the research that really supports what we're saying in terms of the mental health. In fact, in Scandinavia, there are mental health programs or mental health institutions which take their residents out for hikes in the area because they know that it has as much benefit, if not more, than therapy, talk therapy. Because exactly as you say, just being out and exercising and producing endorphins. One of the issues, I know we've been talking about the people who love us and protect us unwittingly hurting us in effect, but also there were people who because of their parents or whatever are scared to try. Mm-hmm. And it may be the people who are newly blind, for example. We just believe that everything's been cut off. And we have to speak to them to say, look, you don't have to give up things that you used to love doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's different, Bill. Like you were talking about somebody who's newly blind. Well, somebody who's newly blind, just using their new cane skills to get to the mailbox at the end of their driveway and back in, that is huge. So don't think, especially if you're new to blindness, don't think that you need to go out and learn how to ski blind or rock climb blind or something like that. Start small. Start doing those little errands by yourself, like going to the mailbox and then you'll get more confident with your skills. Go around the block the next time, then, maybe go to the nearby grocery store or coffee shop by yourself. Just the feeling of accomplishment, being outside, doing something is there is no medication or that can get you to that feeling of self-confidence, like doing it outside on your own.
Right. And even if you do stumble, that doesn't mean you can't do something.
That's right.
It's that old saying, you can do anything you want to, you just need to do it differently.
Absolutely.
And that's how we learn. Just as we let little babies learn to crawl.
Absolutely.
And, in order to be able to walk, we need to do the same thing.
Exactly.
And it's so injurious for us not to do anything. And we need to have the feeling of confidence, even just when we're not talking about the health benefits of exercise, just the confidence that it gives us in trying.
Absolutely. I mean, I have one of the largest, ugliest bruises anybody has ever seen on the inside of my left knee at the moment from falling skiing on Friday. And when I fell, I fell onto my other ski on the edge. So, and I'm fine. It doesn't hurt to put, bear weight or anything. I'm totally fine, but it is humongous and it is very tender to touch.
And humiliating.
Yeah, it was. But one of the things, Bill, that I really had to learn, and I still struggle with it at times, when I do fall down or I run into something, the first thing that always pops into my head is, oh, it's because I can't see. But that's not necessarily true. My husband, who's a much better skier than me, and I have friends that I ski with that are much better than me, they fall down as many times as I do. And they've had very similar bruises on the inside of their knee. And when they fall, when somebody sighted falls down, they don't blame it on their vision. They just like, oh, I hit the root that, or, they call them snow snakes that go across. But when somebody who's blind falls or whatever, that's usually the first thing. Oh, I did that because I'm blind. No, you did it because you hit a patch of ice, or you hit one of those snow snakes, but I think that I think, like you said originally, Bill, it is important to fall down. It's important to run into things because that's how we learn. So when I used to ski, and if I heard ice, because everybody knows that sound is like when your skis hit ice, and my whole body would tense up because I knew that the terrain just changed and it could be deadly, especially if I was going fast. I had to learn that when I hear that sound now, because I would fall because I would tense up. And I had to learn, no, you actually need to do the opposite. You need to relax into it and trust the skills that you have. And, skiing on ice is different. But it is the same skill set as skiing in powder. It's the same basic concept. And I try to use that in everything in my life. It's okay to fall down. It's okay to run into things. Because what matters is what happens after you fall down or after you run into something. Are you going to go back to bed and hide? Are you going to give up? No, you take that experience and like you said, you learn from it. What is the takeaway from this? So that's my philosophy anyway.
I think that's right. I was thinking of times, I haven't skied for a while, but when I first came here to Colorado, I skied. And I was so focused on, oh, I'm blind, I'm trying to ski, when I was forgetting the fact that I was having some breathing problem because I was in a high altitude and I was dehydrated.
Yeah.
I was putting the attribution of my problem to the fact that I was blind, when really what I needed to do is stop and check my my physical self.
Yes.
Excluding the blindness.
Absolutely.
And I learned from that experience, but it's it's that what we attribute our problem to. And
Absolutely.
I'm still even in my own house, I'm still having trouble because I run into things. And, oh, I'm blind. I didn't see that corner. And I've been in this place for 12 years. I should know where everything is.
Yeah.
But I, unfortunately, am not willing to admit that I need to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I need to think about where I'm going rather than just go, oh, I think I know where I am. Bonk, But it's our obsession, if you will, or the fact that we've got a weakness, a blindness,
Yeah.
that we forget, as you were saying, everybody else runs into walls, because if they're hurrying and they're not watching where they're going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is a hard shift to make in our brains to let that go and to take that deep breath and just focus on the here and now. I tell people all the time about, blind people we're one of the best communities on living in the here and now, because we know for a fact that if we're daydreaming or we're not paying attention, if we're worrying about the grocery list or whatever, we are going to run into something or off something. So we have to stay focused, and and that's a skill that we have to refine. It's if we don't, we're going to be a clumsy, beat up blind person with lots of bruises and cuts because we can't. And I was sharing that with somebody recently, and he said, and he was totally blind and has been blind for most of his life. And he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I never thought of that, because he said he gets really frustrated with his sighted friends and family members because they're like spacey, like they don't pay attention to what's going on around them. And it is a skill that when you're blind, you really do have to hone that skill in to focus on the here and now. And it's the same thing when you're outside, regardless if you're taking a walk or going paddleboarding or whatever it is, when you're blind, you really have to pay attention. You have to listen for those birds in the trees and which direction are they, or which way the wind is, or the water sound. And it's almost a blessing to me because of my blindness, I actually experience more of the outdoors than my sighted family and friends. It happens so frequently, Bill. Like even when I'm skiing, I'll hear somebody ski by me and I can actually hear the music. They have either headphones on or something, some kind of music, and might be reggae music or something. And I'll ask my guide, I'm like, oh, that music is really awesome, we should keep up with them. And the guide is like, what music? And then I'm like, the guy that whoever just came right by me, I could hear music. Or like I'm up there skiing and I will smell the lodge, because they're cooking hamburgers and hot dogs and making coffee and things. Like I can smell it way in advance, and I'll be like, oh, we're getting close to, the cabin, the warming hut or whatever. And my guide will be like, how do you know that? And I'm like, can't you smell that? And sure enough, once I say it, they'll do it, and they're like, oh my gosh, yes, I do. But I'm like, what are you focusing on that you can't hear and you can't smell? It's like almost like people who can see, that one sense takes over everything else, where it's the opposite with us, right, Bill? Like we have to experience all of those other senses, sometimes at the exact same time, and focus on them. So I don't know. I think we're the lucky ones.
Yeah, well, that's right. But people attribute us to replacing our sight with some magical sense that compensates for it. It's not a magical sense. It's a focus. Yeah. And where we're using all the other senses that we have in order to give us the information we need that people take for granted when they're sighted. I know I have a new dog, as you know.
Yes.
And I've been running into trouble with him because I had forgotten with my previous dog and from a year of inactivity between dogs,
Yeah.
certain things that I had to be aware of, like the pavement, pavement going up and down that tell me where I am. And, to give me a sense of what direction I'm going and so forth. And I'm having to use electronic compass right now till he gets used to understanding where I want to go.
Right.
But I don't have any extra senses, but I have to use everything that I have left to be able to maneuver, and I've lost that skill, and I have to build it back up again.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten lazy.
Yeah.
But I have no magical skills that people attribute to me.
Shh, don't tell people that, Bill. We want them to think we have magical skills.
Well,
We're
I want people who
right?
are.
We get our capes out every morning.
Yeah, well, I want people who have who have blindness to be able to know that they really have if they call on it, if they trust it, they have a survival skill that is called focus. And if we don't pay attention to what we're learning about the landscape or the direction of where we are, we'll get into trouble. Yeah. Not because we're blind, but because we're not using the abilities that we have.
That's right. That's right.
Now, how do you prepare for
sighted people? That happens with sighted people too. Yeah. If they stop using a skill that they need for, surviving in this world, sometimes they have to go back and get refresher courses on those as well.
True.
Yeah.
When you're running, you generally run with someone?
Yes, I do. And it depends on the location. I may or may not run with them with a tether, which a tether is just literally what it sounds like. It's made out of nylon, and the guide holds one end and I hold the other end. If it's a race and it's really, really crowded, then I want to be tethered. But if it's running on like the bike path near my house and I know it's flat and wide, I don't need to be tethered.
But certainly that's one way that you may need to compensate by having someone with you, just because there are all kinds of surprises that sighted people would get into trouble with.
Exactly.
And it can be. I know there are some people who run by themselves, but they know the terrain. And that's what's really key, is to be familiar with where you are, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you rely on your other senses. You may rely on a second person to go with you, but it doesn't mean you have to be tethered to them. It just means that you've got another someone with you, and it's a lot more fun, I think.
Yeah.
To run with someone than doing a solo.
And that's true, and even if you're
really
sighted.
Help both of you.
Even if you're sighted, you should be out there with a partner.
Yeah, exactly. It's just more enjoyable to be running with someone on any excuse.
Yeah.
But it's the question of our being... See, I think part of it, of course, is the shame. We fight this thing with a shame about being blind. Mm-hmm. And that really is a hindrance.
Yeah.
Because as long as we're ashamed, we're not looking for ways that enable you to do what you need, what you really ought to be doing.
Right.
Regardless
Absolutely.
of whether you're blind or sighted. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like when I ski, I have an orange bib on that says blind skier, and my guide has a bib that says, guide on it. Or when we're running, especially if I'm running with other adaptive runners, we have bibs on that says blind runner on it. And it's, I think it has to take a lot of self-confidence to be in public with a bright orange bib that says,
Yes.
it's like, I'm blind and I'm proud, that it might as well say that
Yeah,
because, but it's not only for my safety, it's also the safety of others. So when somebody is above me and they're skiing and they're looking down the mountain and they see that bib that says blind skier, well, they're going to take a little bit extra care. At least I hope they do. They're like, oh, well, that person is blind. I'm going to be a little bit more cautious going in front of them or around them or whatever.
Right.
And the same thing when you're running, because if you have a tether on and if somebody doesn't know you're blind and tethered, they might try to run between you and the guide and they could actually get hurt. All of you could get hurt. So it's
right.
It's and I think we should be proud. To me, my blindness is just part of who I am. I also have, long brown hair that I'm really proud of. I'm 5'9". I'm really proud to be a tall woman. We should all be proud of the different parts of us that make us up as a whole. And if blindness is part of that whole, you should be just as proud of it as the rest of you. Don't hide what makes you you.
That's a good point. And you see, the thing is, again, we're talking mental health, being proud of being blind rather than being ashamed of it. Yeah. And I know there are people out there, and I run into them all the time with my guide dog, and they're impressed with the harness. Oh, that's a neat harness the dog has.
Yes.
And they don't have a clue.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've walked.
Absolutely. But that's,
I've walked with.
Is that part of our magic, though? Part of that, what makes us special is we get to educate the public.
Yeah.
Because, especially when I'm skiing, I have people frequently ski by me, or if I'm in line to get on the lift or whatever, they're like, oh my gosh, you are so inspiring to me. To watch you ski, or, it's so beautiful to see you out here, or whatever it is. But in it, you talk about mental health. Well, it's good for their mental health too. Maybe it pulled them out of a little bit of their darkness.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about how inspirational I am. And I get a little nauseous because I don't consider myself inspirational, but I'm comfortable with being blind.
Yes.
But in terms of inspiration, what are the choices?
Yeah. But I do it when but there's a little kid, like a 4-year-old on his snowboard that's racing down the mountain. That's inspiring to me, so.
Yes, exactly.
But I know, I get it too, Bill. And sometimes it's nauseating, but you know what? If me walking down the street with my cane or my guide dog brightens somebody's day, that's awesome.
I guess it's better that, they say it's awesome than say, that blind guy just walked into a pole there. What's wrong with him?
Exactly.
But what we're talking about, one is we have to get out. And Colorado has some wonderful trails. I just did right before, about a month or so ago, I did Mount Falcon. And that was the first time I did it with my dog. And not only it was great for me, because I love the hike at Mount Falcon, but it was the first time that he has had a chance to guide me on a mountain trail. And I could sense from him how proud he was of having the opportunity to do that and how much he loved it.
Yeah.
And so that it benefits everybody. And, if we get some people to, instead of blocking or trying things out, say, well, why don't you come with me?
Yes.
We all benefit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we at Audio Information Network of Colorado, we've had the last 2 years, we've had our big fundraising hike, and our team is called the Audio Trekkers. And you can actually check us out. We're, if you go to Rocky Mountain PBS station, they did a beautiful, beautiful story about it this last year. And I get so much positive feedback, not just from the blind participants, because some of them, it's the first time, Bill, that they've ever been hiking. Even though they were born and raised in Colorado, it's the first time they got to go hiking. But it's because AINC gave them that opportunity and we set them up for success. But we also get incredible feedback from the sighted guides and from the sponsors, because we invite everybody out there. You know, we want our volunteers to come and be part of it. And there's just something magic that happens on a mountain, no matter how steep it is. Everybody working together and being out there together and breathing that fresh air and helping each other and supporting each other up the trail. And there's really nothing like it out there.
Did you have any special equipment that you used for hikers, or gave hikers to do the hike?
Really, the only things are trek poles, the trekking poles. You really don't want to use your white cane because you could break it, because white canes are not meant for support. So we do recommend having 2 trek poles, not just one, and we teach people how to use them. And then the other is, sighted guides. We teach people, and there's all different kinds of techniques for sighted guides when it comes to hiking. It's very different than walking on cement or being inside as a sighted guide. And then the other, if people are confident enough, we will give the guides a little bear bell, and they literally walk in front of the blind person, and they just, it's a little sound, little or big, depending on what the person wants. So they kind of follow that bell. And that is really neat, because the blind person with the trek poles, and we train them how to use them. They have the freedom to go at their own pace. Right. Because when you do sighted guide with the elbow, you kind of have to go at your guide's pace, or the guide has to go at the blind person's pace. Where this technique, you both really can kind of feel free and independent, and you're not tied together. I hadn't heard about that, but that sounds really doable. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is, and it's not. It's not a race to the top. Whenever I go hiking, I make sure everybody knows I am not racing to the top, because I'm going to lose if we do race. Because I have other heart, I have a really bad heart and lungs. And so I can't race up a mountain at that altitude. So, but I can get there. I'll get to the top. It might take me longer than you want me to, but that's neat, because I get to hang back at the back with the people that are really struggling. And those are the most amazing people, because they're really trying, and they're the ones that are inspiring me to keep going, because I know how much it's hurting. And so we always have a great time we call ourselves the sweepers at the back, because we're sweeping the trail, making sure nobody gets left behind. And we usually have the most fun at the back of the line.
Yeah. Well, are there special techniques as well for skiing? And
Yes, absolutely. So my husband and I have been skiing together for years, but it took until last ski season for us to get radios. So with their Bluetooth headsets, he's got one in his, ski helmet, and I have one in mine. So when I hear, and I'm also hearing, I've lost a lot of hearing over the last few years. And I do have hearing aids, but when you're outside and if the wind is blowing or it's just busy or whatever, it's hard to hear your guide, no matter how loud they can be. It's also hard on the guide to be yelling all the
Yes.
time.
Mm-hmm.
So with these Bluetooth headsets, my husband Moses, he can talk normal. He'll be like, turn left, hold, or stop. But we can talk like, or he'll say there's a snowboarder coming up fast on your right, but he looks like he's in control, so just hold your line. Or he might say, we're coming up on somebody. It's obvious it's the first time on skis. So we're going to go really slow and we're going to take a big curve around them. And he gets to talk normal voice. And that has been extremely helpful. And I've noticed that I know Foresight ski guides up in Vail, they have started using the headsets with the guide and the blind skiers. And I think it's really, really helpful. It feels safer for me too. Also, if I need something like, my legs are hurt, I need a minute to stop and rest. I can just say that in my normal voice. Or when we go inside and I need to go to the restroom, he can, Moses can say, well, Penn, it's, 10 feet to 1 o'clock is the door. So they're really helpful.
That's a great idea. I'm not familiar with the headset. It makes sense because I'm hearing impaired and I wear hearing aids, but anything with the Bluetooth can communicate with me in a skiing situation or in any kind of situation where I'm some distance from someone. It's a great idea.
Yeah. I definitely think it's a lot safer. Because sometimes,
absolutely.
What got
in fact,
us,
it's safe.
Yeah, what got us to get them is it was our first trip out last season, and we were at Keystone, and there was so much ice that it was just that constant like static. And it was the last run of the day, and I could not hear Moses at all because that like static noise was so loud because everybody was going down. And I had to just sit down because it was not safe for me because I couldn't see and I couldn't hear. And then Moses actually had to hike back up. It wasn't too far, and we just sat there until the hill cleared enough where I felt safe enough I could hear his voice. And that's when I went online and researched the Bluetooth headsets, and we've been skiing with them ever since. Because it doesn't matter if it's icy now because I can hear him because he's inside my head.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that makes so much sense. One of the advantages that I think that we have is that there's been a lot of technology that the problem is we have to find it and use it so that we can do so much more than we could have maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago. But we have to be committed to trying different things out. I think that's one of the keys. If there's a message from this program, there's stuff out there. If we ask one another, we check around, and rather than saying, I can't do something because I'm blind, but say, how can I do it when I'm blind?
Well, don't you think that's one of the reasons it's so important to reach out into the blind community? Because I facilitate a low vision support group and twice a month, and I learn so much from them because, somebody will say, I'm running into this issue. Has anybody else been there? What are you using? What are you doing? What technology or what resource is helping? And I learn something every single time we get together that I didn't know because, there are people out there that are, finding those new technology, but also just the resource or a service that I'm not aware of. So it's really important to find those support groups wherever you can find them.
it's really important that we're not ashamed of one another because we can learn from each other
Yeah.
how to operate as a blind person, how we can operate with whatever disability or limitation we may have. I think I'm at the part I really need to get together with older folks
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to to survive
Yeah.
in what is basically a younger generation that's in charge. But
Absolutely.
just talk it, just not be ashamed of what we can't do, what we perceive we can't do, but say, I'm having trouble with this. How do you deal with it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's humbling sometimes because we have to admit the thing that we may have some real hesitation about.
Yeah.
But somebody else may have the answer to help us do what it is we really want to do successfully.
Absolutely.
All of which come back around to helping us feel mentally healthy.
Yes.
As well as physically healthy.
Yeah.
And if we're mentally healthy and feeling like we can ask and we can look around and we can be assertive and find ways to do the things we really want to do, then we're also going to be physically healthy. Do the two of them work together?
Absolutely. And it's like how you kind of stated at the very beginning of the podcast today, Bill, that they do go hand in hand. And the, perfect example of that is, I fell last March 18th, I fell skiing and I broke my right wrist and I tore the ligaments and tendon in my thumb. And it took me out. It, knocked me out of skiing for the rest of the season. Well, I couldn't ski. And that really set me into a really dark space for a while.
Right.
And so they do go hand in hand. So then I had to find something else, so I, as soon as I got the cast off and got the okay, I started swimming, instead of skiing and, in the pool and no, it was not as exhilarating as flying down the mountain, but it was okay, so
they could throw some crocodiles in the pool. And that would be exhilarating.
That might have made it a little more exciting, but it does go hand in hand. It's if you exercise on any level, whatever that is for you, you feel better. But then if you can't exercise for some reason, that really messes with you mentally. So they go hand in hand. And, I just think it's so important to keep moving as much as you can and pushing yourself. There's nothing like the accomplishment of standing on the top of a mountain peak that you didn't think you were going to be able to to get there, or ski a run that you didn't think you could do, or like that sense of accomplishment is so, it just feeds my soul and my mental stability, and it's just amazing.
It is amazing. And I think what I'm hearing you all say also, okay, if something for some reason or another blocks you from doing something you'd love to do, like skiing or whatever, temporarily, it's important for us to replace it with some other physical thing to keep the endorphins going, the parts of the brain that produces a feeling of pleasure, to keep at it, because that that's going to help repair you physically and mentally both.
Yeah.
It's just to keep active, because the word, I think it really, maybe we have to have timers on our body that says, okay, enough being at the computer, get up and do something.
Yeah. That's
because so much of what way we're set up is to just do nothing, like watch TV, to be passive, and that is not helpful. Passivity is not really that helpful to us.
Yeah, that's right. I think anytime that we remain dormant, it's it's not a good place to be. And not that you should never take time. Like, obviously, if you're going through trauma, sometimes you need to just sit and
Yeah, the balance.
And feel, yeah. But if you do that for too long and it becomes too comfortable, it makes it even harder to get back out.
And that's been the penalty that we've been paying with the requirements of the COVID epidemic.
Yes.
We've become, I know I've become a lot more sitting back rather than, getting out there. And, that's one of my resolutions is to get myself going. And I think that's what all of us are feeling, to get out there. It's just trying to figure out, given who we are, whatever parameters you want to put for us, to find ways to get out there and be active appropriately, and to the degree that we're not driving ourselves and going to the other extreme, but being balanced in time of rest, time of activity, time of trying things out that we normally wouldn't try.
Right.
And see how we do. And
Absolutely.
not consider anything as failure. Failure is just another opportunity to learn. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And just because we find we can't do something, there may be some legitimate reason that we can't. And it doesn't say anything about us. It just says that particular activity doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
But if we're willing to try, and if we're willing to see if we can do it, there are ways that can help us do whatever it is we want to do and develop the pride in ourselves and our ability to do things.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great point because, skiing is not for everybody, regardless if you're sighted or blind. I have lots of sighted friends that have no desire to ski because just because you're blind doesn't mean that you have to do something, but find something that gives you joy and gets you outside. And it's, and sometimes that takes several tries, it might take you a few times to find, sort of that fit, but like Bill says, just try.
I have to admit, part of the training program I was in, I had to do rock climbing, and I hated it. I was cursing the whole time I was climbing, and and I'm sure they could hear me everywhere in the mountain area where I was. But I look back on it and say, you really, I should reassess it and at least try it again with a different attitude.
Yeah.
I had to rock climb because that was part of the program, requirement of the program. And you can imagine how I felt about the program at that moment.
Yes. Where the opposite was true for me. The first time I rock climbed, I fell in love with it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is just amazing because it's so tactile, Yeah. And like you're on the, side of a mountain, this cliff. And it was heaven to me. But again, that's me, because I've been to a lot of those. I used to teach blind students how to rock climb in the Rocky Mountain National Park. So I was probably one of those people down below hearing you cursing. So there were students that were just, I was like, yep, this is going to be the one and only time they ever do this. But there were also people that were like me, like, oh my gosh, like they found what they loved. They found something that brought them joy. And that was beautiful.
Yeah. Yep. And I think the tactile part of whether it's rock climbing or whatever, that is our saving grace. If we can access our ability to feel what we're doing and to use that sense of touch, it really compensates for what we may have lost with being blind, because we can see so much through our touch.
Absolutely.
What I refer to as the Helen Keller method.
Yeah.
If we have that touch, it really is meaningful. But we may not, because we're so sighted focused, we don't pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And people who are sighted maybe benefit by wearing blindfolds for a while and getting a chance to feel how things feel, like in rock climbing, like anything that we do. Where mindfulness, the whole theory of mindfulness is that we become acutely aware of all our senses at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And we pay attention when we walk to what the road feels like, because sighted, we don't do that.
Right.
And that is so fulfilling, and it's so meditative. It is so healthy for us to be doing that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Penn, this has been wonderful for me to get a chance to interact with you and learn from you. As you say, we learn from others.
Yes.
And I'm curious about some of the things that you mentioned in terms of what I may need to try out, like those headphones, in terms of situations and trying out skiing again or doing some things. So I really, I know I speak for our listeners too, to appreciate how much you've contributed to the physical and mental health of people who are blind in helping and teaching and encouraging people. Thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you, friend. Thank you for what you're doing. This is amazing. It's such an amazing program, and I think all of us are learning so much through you and your experiences too, as well, Bill.
Thank you. I appreciate those last words. This is Bill Lundgren, your host at Blindsight, and we end this program, and we look forward to you continuing to listen to both to Penn's program After Sight and to Blindsight. Have a great week.
Thanks, Bill.